Okay, let's just take a second and imagine this. Think about trees. Real trees, with leaves and branches,
Yeah.
but not here on Earth. Imagine them swaying, maybe gently, inside a dome on the moon. Sounds pretty wild, right? Straight out of a movie.
Yeah.
But that's what we're diving into today. Can we actually grow trees on the moon? Not just like a seed sprouting in a lab dish, but a real lunar forest someday. So our mission here is to really unpack this. We'll look at the huge challenges, what people have already tried, which is kind of amazing, and the science, maybe even the philosophy behind dreaming of lunar trees. What would it actually take to make life flourish up there? Let's get into it. First things first, we have to face facts. The moon is, well, it's incredibly hostile to life. Where do we even begin with the problems?
Oh, absolutely. It's hostile on like a fundamental level. I mean, start with the basics.
Mhm.
No atmosphere.
Right.
Zero.
No air.
No air.
Yeah.
Which means no oxygen for roots, no
Yeah.
CO2 for the leaves.
Yeah.
No weather, obviously, but also no protection from harsh solar radiation, cosmic rays. It's completely exposed.
So it's not just one thing, it's everything that an atmosphere does for us.
Exactly. And then there's the water situation, or lack thereof. The moon is incredibly dry. Bone dry.
So any water has to come from where? Ice in craters?
Yeah, potentially mining ice from permanently shadowed craters near the poles, which is, difficult. Or you haul it all the way from Earth, which is unbelievably expensive.
Okay, so no air, water is a huge problem. What about the ground itself? Can you even call it soil?
Not really, no. It's called regolith.
Yeah.
And you could picture something like crushed rock mixed with tiny, sharp shards of glass. It's formed by billions of years of micrometeorite impacts.
Glass. Wow.
Yeah. And critically, it has none of the organic matter, the microbes, the nutrients, none of the stuff that makes Earth's soil alive. It's basically inert dust and rock.
Inert. Okay. And then the temperatures, I hear they're pretty extreme.
Extreme doesn't quite cover it. During the long lunar day, which lasts about 2 Earth weeks, the surface could get hotter than boiling water, like over 120 degrees Celsius. And then, during the 2-week lunar night, it plunges. We're talking minus 170 Celsius. Just unimaginably cold.
Minus 170, so that long day-night cycle itself is a huge stressor.
A massive one. 2 weeks baked, 2 weeks frozen. It's incredibly hard for any complex life to handle.
So yeah, putting it mildly, a tree just popping up naturally on the moon, absolutely impossible. Forget about it.
Completely impossible.
Which means if we want trees there, we need to basically recreate Earth. We need to know exactly what a tree needs.
Precisely. And a tree needs quite a lot that we take for granted here. It needs air, right? Carbon dioxide for photosynthesis, that's the obvious one. But also oxygen around the roots for respiration.
Okay, air, check.
Water. A consistent supply. Not too much, not too little. Delivered reliably.
Tricky if you're mining it or shipping it.
Very tricky. Then you need soil. Or something like it. Something with nutrients, microorganisms, good structure for the roots to anchor and explore.
Which the moon definitely doesn't have naturally.
Not even close. And sunlight. But not just any light. The right intensity, the right wavelengths for photosynthesis. The raw, unfiltered sunlight on the moon might actually be too harsh.
And a stable temperature, obviously. No boiling, no freezing.
Exactly. Trees have a pretty narrow comfort zone compared to those lunar extremes. So yeah, on Earth, ecosystems manage all this complex interplay. On the moon, every single one of those factors needs to be artificially created and maintained. Inside a bubble, essentially.
A very sophisticated bubble. But, this isn't purely theoretical. People have actually tried sending plants into space, even to the moon, right? We've learned a few things already.
We have, yeah. It's fascinating. The big one recently was China's Chang'e-4 mission back in 2019. That was the first attempt to actually grow something on the moon.
What did they send?
They had this small, sealed biosphere. Inside were cotton seeds, some yeast, fruit fly eggs, a little mini ecosystem.
And did anything grow?
Amazingly, yes. One of the cotton seeds sprouted. It put out a tiny leaf. Technically the first living thing to, grow on the moon.
Wow. That's incredible. But it didn't last long.
No, sadly. Once the lunar night hit, with those freezing temperatures we talked about, the little sprout died within about a week. Still, it was proof of concept. Germination is possible.
A small step, but a significant one. And what about on the space station? They've been gardening up there for a while.
Oh, yeah, for years. NASA, other agencies, they've grown lettuce, radishes, zinnias, even things like wheat, mostly in microgravity, which is its own weird challenge.
How so? What does microgravity do to plants?
Well, for one thing, roots don't know which way is down. Water doesn't pour. It clumps together in spheres because of surface tension. So watering becomes this whole complicated process. They learn a lot about how plants adapt, how to use things like LED lighting very specifically for growth.
So the ISS is like a test bed for figuring out the basics of space agriculture.
Exactly. It's all part of this larger puzzle of how to sustain life, grow food, and maybe eventually, build more complex ecosystems like forests off Earth.
Which brings us to a big fork in the road, conceptually. If we want trees on the moon long term, do we aim for the Hollywood vision terraforming the whole moon?
Yeah.
Or the more practical approach of building contained habitats?
Right, that's the fundamental choice.
Yeah.
Terraforming. That's
Yeah.
the dream of making the entire moon Earth-like, creating an atmosphere, oceans, the whole 9 yards.
Sounds ambitious.
Hugely ambitious.
Mm.
We're talking technologies far, far beyond anything we have today. It's firmly in the realm of science fiction for the foreseeable future, maybe centuries or more away, if ever possible.
Okay, so the terraforming is out for now. What's the alternative?
The much more feasible path is building self-contained ecosystems. Basically, large pressurized domes or habitats.
Like the Eden Project, but on the moon.
Sort of, yeah,
Mm.
but much more high-tech. Inside, you'd have precisely controlled temperature, humidity, atmosphere. You'd need artificial lighting, likely LEDs tuned for plant growth. And crucially, you'd need systems to recycle absolutely everything: air, water, waste, closed loop.
And the soil, what goes inside the dome?
Well, you could bring soil from Earth, but that's heavy and expensive. More likely, you try to create soil using the lunar regolith, mixed with organic matter, maybe composted waste from the habitat, and crucially, inoculate it with microbes from Earth, bacteria, fungi, bringing the soil to life.
And the trees themselves, would they be special?
Probably. You might need trees that are genetically engineered or selected for resilience, maybe tolerance to lower light or different atmospheric pressures, certainly better radiation resistance, and adaptations for low gravity.
So it really is like building a little piece of earth in a bottle, but a very, very carefully managed bottle placed on the moon.
That's a great analogy. A highly engineered, self-sustaining bottle.
But let's dig into that soil issue a bit more. You said regolith isn't soil, it's crushed rock and glass, basically dead. How do you turn that into something a tree can live in?
Yeah, that's a major hurdle. As we said, lunar regolith is just minerals, silicon dioxide, iron oxides, calcium oxides, but zero nitrogen, zero carbon in forms plants can use, zero organic life, it's sterile.
So what are scientists trying? How do you make it fertile?
Well, they're doing experiments right now, actually, using lunar soil simulants, artificial mixes made here on Earth that chemically and physically resemble the real thing.
Okay.
And they're trying to condition it, adding things like compost nutrients, and importantly, specific types of bacteria and fungi that are known to help break down rock and make nutrients available to plants on Earth.
Like pioneers setting up the groundwork.
Exactly. That's slow work, kind of like kickstarting an ecosystem from scratch.
Yeah.
But they've had some success. Researchers have managed to grow things like tomatoes, beans, cress in these treated simulants in labs.
Really? How well did they grow?
The plants did grow, which is amazing, but often the yields are lower or the plant showed signs of stress compared to growing in good old Earth soil. So it's possible, but we're still figuring out the optimal recipe.
Are there any, key ingredients they think are essential?
One really promising area is mycorrhizal fungi. These are fungi that form symbiotic relationships with plant roots. They extend way out into the soil, like a huge web, helping the plant absorb water and nutrients it couldn't reach on its own.
Ah, like a natural booster system for the roots.
Precisely. On Earth, most plants rely on them. In nutrient-poor lunar soil, they could be absolutely essential for helping trees establish and thrive. It's a really active area of research.
Okay, so maybe we can engineer the soil. But what about gravity? That seems like another massive unknown. The moon only has about 1/6 of Earth's gravity. What does that do to a tree?
That is one of the biggest, wildest questions, honestly. It's a massive biological experiment waiting to happen. How does a large, complex organism like a tree develop and live in just 16G?
Do we even know how they'd orient themselves? Trees grow up, roots grow down. How do they know which way is up?
Well, they use gravity for that. It's a process called gravitropism. Specialized cells sense the pull of gravity and direct growth accordingly. On the moon, that signal is much, much weaker.
So they might get confused.
It's possible. Will they grow sideways? Will they be structurally weaker because they don't have to fight as much gravity? Will they grow much taller, maybe too tall and spindly? Will the roots anchor properly? We have theories, models based on ISS experiments with smaller plants, but we don't truly know what will happen with a full-size tree over its lifespan.
Could we engineer solutions, like trees that don't rely on gravity cues as much? Or maybe artificial gravity?
Both are possibilities, though artificial gravity, maybe in rotating habitats, is complex and energy intensive. Engineering trees for low G might be more feasible long term, maybe selecting species that are naturally less reliant on strong gravitropic responses, or even growing them horizontally along trellises. It really forces us to rethink plant biology from the ground up, literally.
Okay, it's daunting. The environment, the soil, the gravity, just immense challenges. Which brings us back to the big why. Why go through all this trouble for trees? We can survive in space with technology, right? Air tanks, recycled water, nutrient paste. Why the drive for something as complex and, well, alive as a tree?
That really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? I think it's about moving beyond mere survival. It's about thriving, about making space not just a place we visit, but a place we can potentially live, maybe even feel at home.
Home. Trees feel like home.
Exactly. They create familiarity. Imagine parks, gardens, orchards on the moon, places for relaxation, for connection to life, something green that reminds us of Earth. It's psychological as much as it is biological.
And they perform vital functions too, right? They're not just decorative.
Absolutely. Trees are fundamental parts of an ecosystem. They produce oxygen, absorb carbon dioxide, help purify water, create soil, provide food and materials. They are living systems that support other life. Trying to replicate all that with just machines is incredibly hard, maybe even impossible long term. Trees are natural life support systems.
So it's about creating a more robust, maybe more Earth-like ecosystem within these habitats.
Yes. And then there's the symbolism. Planting a tree on another world. That's powerful.
Yeah.
It says something about life's tenacity, about our aspirations. It's a statement that we're not just temporary visitors, but maybe, just maybe, we can extend Earth's biosphere outwards, becoming, in a sense, gardeners of the cosmos.
Gardeners of the cosmos. I like that.
It speaks to hope, to legacy, to a future where humanity has truly branched out. It's more than just science and engineering. It touches on something deeply human.
So, wrapping this up, we've gone from the sheer hostility of the moon, this airless, dry, radiated world, to figuring out how we might engineer soil from dust, grow plants under weird gravity, all inside these contained bubbles. It's an incredible journey just to think about.
It truly is. Overcoming the challenge is monumental, but the reasons for creating sustainable habitats, that connection to home, the sheer symbolic power, they're profound.
And it leaves you with this thought, doesn't it? Imagine, really imagine, future generations walking through a small grove of trees, maybe hearing synthesized birdsong, inside a dome on the moon, looking up at the earth and the sky. What does that do to our sense of self, our relationship with our home planet, knowing that life, our kind of life, has taken root somewhere else?
It would fundamentally change our perspective, I think. Knowing we're not just confined here, knowing that life can, with effort, reach out. It's a future worth striving for.
Definitely something to think about. We hope this deep dive has given you a lot to consider and keeps you looking up, wondering about our future among the stars.